Railroad or Sandbox, which are you? Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. We are going into another DM Quick Tips, taking a look at what kind of DM you are. But before we dive on into it, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there and hit the subscribe button and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Join that historic alumni. Or, if you've already made yourself known on such a powerfully legendary roster, then go on down there, hit the like button, and share the video far and wide to help the channel grow ever further and onwards. But now, with all of that said, let's go ahead and start breaking things down a bit. So what do I mean by are you more railroady or are you more sandboxy? Well, these aren't the only two types of DMs that are out there. These are more just kind of traits that piggyback onto the other kinds of DMs that you might have out there. And the difference is in how you approach the story and how you let your players run about through the world. Are you more railroad or are you more sandbox? A more railroad kind of DM will keep players on a fairly consistent track. They might have a couple of stops here and there where they can get off and do some side things, take in a few quick sights, but they want to get the players back on the story train and keep them moving right along to the next stop, to the next site, to the next encounter, the next battle, and keep them on this set, planned path and track. And that's good for, setting a good pace, good storytelling, but the drawback to it is it can feel a bit restrictive. Your players can kind of feel like, especially if you're not doing great at it and you're really forcing things to move along, the players will really begin to notice that they're confined, restricted, and kind of strain against that a little bit, and may fight against it. Unless, of course, they don't mind and they enjoy this kind of story. So it just kind of depends a little bit on how much of a pro or a con all of these things can be. Versus a more sandbox kind of storyteller where they have everything set up and ready to go and the players can wander off wherever, do what they want, and encounter whatever may be randomly possible within the world and setting, or whatever encounters may make sense for the setting. Now, this, of course, is very, very great for the players. It makes the world feel that much more alive, that much more engaged when it's done right. And it can just really help lend itself to a lot of different stories, especially if the DM is setting things up right. But therein lies the crux of the issue. The DM has to set everything up correctly, and to do so, especially to help make the world feel large, alive, reactive, engaging, they have to know everything in it, or at least have a better idea about everything in it, and be able to come up with new things just on the spot. It's not necessarily an easy thing to do. I do it. I DM that way. That's because I've just done it that way for years, that it's relatively easy for me to come up with all of these things, but that's been more a matter of practice. So if you're not really ready or available or have everything, all your knowledge and notes and everything set up and ready to go, and the players go and do something unexpected, it can be a moment of, give me just a moment here. Just a moment, guys. Sorry, hold up just 1 second. Let me come up with this. Let me write that down. And it can really slow things up. Usually about the biggest stop that I get is when I just take a quick second to write something down, but I come up with it almost instantly. And the players are able to react and move and keep the story moving along fairly well. And also, I still have stories that I want to tell them, but if they don't go and do whatever it is I had planned, that story still happens and progresses. I just decide how it goes without their presence, and typically, within reason, things will tend to go according more or less to the plan of whatever plot or villain or even hero they were trying to stop. So things will progress, and that will make things harder for the players later. Again, just depending on how the story grows and progresses. But again, you can see where that can create a lot of work and make you have to keep a lot in mind. Whereas if you have a set plan, schedule, several stops along the way for the players to play around with, you can control things a bit more tightly, but that can be constraining. But what do you think? What do you prefer, Sandbox or Railroad? Do you prefer something tightly focused, or do you like to stretch your wings and fly out into the wider expanse? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Have I missed the plot, or did I strike another bullseye here? Have I gotten a crit success? And also, if you haven't done so already, go on down there and hit the subscribe button and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. Be notified the next time we upload more great content here to the channel. And, like I said, like the video, share far and wide, and help us grow ever more. But with all that said and done, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you have yourselves a good night.